One day, the gates opened, and the world was getting destroyed. The ferocious and vicious monsters came from a world that was then called the Demon Realm. Then some chosen people awoke as hunters, and they are the beings who receive special abilities from Mana. Thanks to them, mankind was finally able to fight back. Time passed by, and the city was eventually rebuilt. Although there are still many problems, at least some can enjoy a peaceful life. However, that was not always the case, as there were way too few hunters that awakened naturally, causing meaningless deaths as the monsters continued to attack relentlessly. So they decided to create artificial beings to counter this and actually have a resistance against the monsters. The ingredients for the experiment are inmates on death row, or animal carcasses, also minerals from within the gate, and monster cells. They splice every one of these things together, and the effort made by mankind to survive, which ended up turning into mass production of Chimera Hunters. This can be said as the ideal combination of the scientific and hunter community, dramatically lowering the hunter mortality rate and saving countless lives. Just like that, the world seemed to gradually become its old self. It jumps to an illegal Chimera laboratory later in the night. Some people inside the lab say that they just have to check on this one, and then they can go home. They are on the 18th floor for the high-rank Chimera storage room. They're mentioning how the arms of number 17 are rotten. One of them gets close, and the other tells him not to, but the guy says it's fine since his brain is broken, and it can't move without an order. But they see that its right arm is totally rotten, which means that it must be a side effect of the experiment. But they wonder why it's so scary, as they can't even see what's ahead. They decide to just leave it, since it's going to be scrapped anyways, and the other guy agrees as they walk away, leaving number 17 alone in his cage. At the director's office, they inform him that 17 is hopeless, its body is almost completely destroyed, and if it were the other ones, it would have been dead. The director asks how long he can live, and they say at most a month. The other guy agrees, and he says if that's the case, it needs to join the gate sealing operation and have it guard the back when the hunters are returning. 17 looks up at the small little moonlight he has in his cell, and immediately jumps to him, brawling in the Demon Realm, specifically the Rocky Mountain Zone. A bird is flying in for an attack, and 17 starts to release some thread from the tip of his nails, creating a net that instantly cuts the monster flying at it into chunks. As they start to fall to the floor, a giant dune worm appears. 17 crouches down and leaps up into the air above it and slices through it, also turning it into meat chunks. 17 then roars, opening his 7 jaws, creating a giant blue ball of electricity that shoots out towards the monster horde, eliminating everything in front of him with a single attack. We see that it even went through the entire cliff behind him as well, and the hunters inside the gate with him say this is amazing, as he erased all of those monsters in one move, as expected of an S-class Chimera Hunter. They then say that the gate shows no sign of closing, and it's their 3rd day here already. One of the other hunters says not to worry, as no matter how many monsters come at them, as long as they have that S-class Chimera they can handle it. One of the guys grabs his sword, saying that they just have to take care of all the small fries that manage to get past 17. The gate turns red as it starts to warp, and a man and one of the hunters alert them that the gate is closing. They say it's finally time, and the leader tells everyone that it's time to get out and head home. 17 punches something as we see him having a one-on-one brawl with a giant monster. One of the women hunters asks if they're not bringing it home, and the leader says that they were told not to bring him with, and she says that she thought he was expensive. The leader says that they said it was going to die soon anyway. She says that she's feeling sorry for it. If it weren't for that guy, there would have been a lot of casualties this time. He tells her not to sympathize with it, as he thinks he's technically a non-living thing, and that the only thing he can do is follow orders. As 17 is still brawling the monsters, the leader says that in the end, they're nothing but monsters. We hear the lab director tell 17 that the mission is to secure the return of the hunters, as he's still defending the gate from all the monsters swarming them, and he is constantly fighting them off. The director asks 17 if he understands, but the monster he kills this time starts to release a type of acidic goo, and we see 17 no longer has his arms. The director says that there's nothing else but that, and once the mission is completed, he doesn't even have to come back. 17 says return, secure, complete, but realizing that he's melting, he says return is not allowed, and decides to just sit there and succumb to his wounds. That day, the mission result of Chimera Hunter 17, who met its end, is as followed. Not a single hunter died from humanity's side, but he subjugated a total of 1,823 monsters. As 17 started to die, his erased past played in his head. He was once a normal human who got kidnapped at the age of 9. His memories started playing, starting with his oldest one. Only since his brain was broken, he couldn't understand the exact meaning of the scenes, but he looked at them, at the memories of his past life. 79 years ago, he was dropped off at the District 13 orphanage. Then 9 years later, the director says that he hit his friend with a rock because he made fun of him, asking how many times it's been. He then closed the door, kicking him out, saying that he can't take care of him anymore. 17 was laying in the snow, and some people pulled up in a van, saying that children come rolling at them when they go to the slums, and they take him with them, saying that he must be a new experiment subject. They ask what number he is, and this is how he became number 17. They are instructed to make it so that he can't run away. One of the surgeons says to record it, and they inject number 17 with S+ class silkworm cells. They decide to see how he reacts to it. Turns out there were no side effects, but he gained the special abilities. Even though his human external appearance and personality are maintained, it seems like he possesses a unique constitution. They decide to keep administering him with anything until there's a reaction. They continue their experiments. 6 years go by of them constantly experimenting on him. As we see him now, fighting off against a monster, protecting civilians and another hunter. There are hornet types, and they immediately get zapped, and he deletes them as if they were never there to begin with. A civilian thanks him while she holds her daughter, and 17's partner apologizes that a kid has to carry all the burden, but 17 says it's fine. 5 years later, after defeating more monsters, he wonders why he's here and what he was even doing. The director asks why he's stopping, and if he's confused with his memories, and he laughs, saying finally his side effects are showing. 17 wonders what he's talking about. Another 5 years go by, and it turns out they have injected him with 500 different substances over the last 15 years straight. He's at least an S-class hunter, but in reality, his abilities are unmeasurable, and he is their laboratory's best masterpiece. 34 years go by. A woman is handing him a chicken breast, asking if he's nice. He immediately gobbles it down, which scares her, and she asks if everybody saw that, as she told them he would eat. The civilians are grossed out, saying that kids shouldn't be watching this. And then finally, 3 days ago, he completed his mission and ended up succumbing to his injuries and dying. Amidst the battlefield, we see a piece of his spine laying on the floor. It starts to move before it floats up into the air. His entire spine begins to restructure itself as his body begins reforming. Out of the 527 different monster cells, one of them created this spark that allowed him to stand back, and he wonders what's going on, and how he's a human again. As it turns out, he had revived. He looks down at his hands and says, judging from the fact that the monster cells are still active, he can't say that he is completely human. It feels like quite some time has passed since the experiment, and seeing how the lab hasn't come to retrieve him, he has been discarded. Even the experiment number on his wrist is gone, and this means that he doesn't have to run from the lab anymore. The reason his body turned out like this must be because of the fire-type monster's power. They say that if the core isn't destroyed, you can survive up to 3 times, but they also said that human cells can't fuse with phoenix cells. What's certain to him now is that his body has reverted to his prime. Maybe it's because all the side effects of the experiments are gone, but he feels better than ever. Ever since the side effects began, he always felt like there was a fog in his head. Even the spells they engraved to prevent betrayal have all disappeared. If his life as number 17 is truly over, maybe now he can finally live as a human. 17 was just a number they arbitrarily assigned him in the lab. He goes to tell us his real name, but we get a flashback to the orphanage director saying he has a shitty personality, and at the very least, trying to live helping others. He needs to live trying to help others, even if it's a conscious effort. In that sense, he needs to live to save thousands of people. We learn that his full name is Cheon Dowoon. Dowoon asks how a stray cat is meant to save anybody, and it's time for him to get going. He looks up at the sky, thinking about revenge. He says that revenge needs a target in front of him, and honestly, it feels so long ago now that the fire for revenge has just burned like it used to. There's no way he can live as a human right away anyways, and if he keeps living, he'll run into them eventually, and he'll think about it when that time comes. He then looks down at his junk, realizing that he has no clothes, and he says that it's settled, and it's time for him to try living like a human, and that first, he has to go get some clothes, and he doesn't even remember the last time he wore some as he starts walking somewhere. He makes it to a river, wondering what he should make clothes out of. Since he found some water, he says that he wants to look around for a bit close by. He then spots something, as there is a dead monster below him, and he wonders if there was a territory dispute or something, and it looks like it was pretty strong, but there are no obvious major injuries. Besides a purple goo from its mouth, so it seems like it died from poison. He says this is good, as he happened to need leather, and he starts to shapeshift his hand into a knife. He says that he'll need a blade to skin it, and he says, thinking about what he learned at the lab, he first needs to cut the belly vertically and insert the dissection scissors through the armpit, and he decides to do it like he has been taught. As soon as he cuts into it, he realizes something, as it starts to shoot out a purple miasma, and it flies past him. He says that it most definitely died from poison as it starts to fumigate the entire area. Of course, it has no effect on him, and he says that it just smells like ass, and then he needs to continue skinning it. After doing so, he says that it wasn't bad for a first try, and next, he needs to clean off its skin. He starts dipping it in the water, getting a lot of the poison out of it, and he says that he thought it would be soft when he saw it, but maybe because it's a monster's hide, that it's way too stiff, and it hasn't even been treated yet. He then gets an idea, and starts whacking the absolute shit out of it, saying that this is how you're supposed to tan a hide. He says this is probably good enough, as he keeps whacking it, and he makes it a lot softer now. He says that the size is also okay, and for some reason, from the tip of the bird's head, a fire starts, and it begins burning. Dowoon is busy ripping the hide into shape, as he punches his hand through it, making an armhole. He does it for both sides, and then ties a vine around his stomach, saying that this is pretty okay, as it turns out it's a perfect fit. He then looks inside of it, saying that the poison is not fully out, and he's too lazy to get rid of it, so he decides to wear it. The bird starts cawing at him, and he says that he thought that shit was dead. The bird starts shaking his head no, and he wonders why it kind of seems like it understood what he was feeling. Even though it had post-mortem stiffness, the fact that it's alive means that this must also be the immortal type. If it were the old him, he would have killed it without hesitation, because he was a hunter. The opponent is already too weak to pose any threat, so there's no need to do that. He tells the bird that it's lucky, but so is he. This is his second life, and if so they should live it well, and if fate allows it, they'll meet again elsewhere, and he walks away from it. He heads into a cave, saying that now the clothing problem is solved, he needs to find a house. The ground begins cracking, as a giant centipede-type monster emerges from underneath it to attack Dowoon, and he says that it's way too dark inside this cave. He cuts off the centipede's head and says that he's going to pass and go find somewhere else. He heads up a mountaintop into a snowy area, and after defeating a couple yetis he says getting food will be difficult here. Then he heads into another forest, finding some mushrooms, saying that this smells like ass. He finds a human cave, even some volcanoes, and he passes on every one of them, until he stumbles across somewhere he likes, as he's looking down from a cliff top. He says that the scenery here is really nice, and he didn't think that he would ever find nature beautiful, and that he wants to look around a bit more, as he leaps off the cliff onto the ground below. He says the water is clear, and there are tons of fish. If he catches one at a time and grills it on the spot, it'll also feel like camping. Since there's a natural fish farm, maybe building a house and living nearby wouldn't be so bad. There are also some flowers, and the air is clear, and this might just be the best spot. And he's going to go ahead and plant himself some roots and make a house here. A gate starts opening back to where I believe he defeated all those monsters, and something shoots out of the portal, and we see it's actually a little robot, asking if this place is really the demon realm. He says first he needs a plot of land to build on. He swings his hand after creating some threads from it, swinging towards the trees, cutting a whole ton of them down. This is deforestation at its finest. He says the land is good enough, and he wants to gather the good quality trees separately. He says that he's probably got enough logs, but there's still too many stumps. He then whips all the stumps out of the ground using the thread once more, and even flattens a giant chunk of land, saying that this is nice and there's plenty of sunlight. He just moves his hands and feet however he felt like as he was building this. But he did understand that he had to drive in a post at each corner. He says that this is what you call free will, but he finds it very fun, saying maybe it's only because it's his first home. He then lays down planks for the floor. And for the walls, there are no nails, so he's going to use slime from the snail-type monsters instead. And once it hardens, it'll be as solid as stone. But he doesn't know if it'll be waterproof. He then says it's time for the finishing touches as he starts laying down a bunch of threads. And he says that even most monsters won't be able to come near now as he's looking at his ugly-ass house. POV, your first house in Minecraft. He says it's quite cozy, I guess as long as he likes it. There's also something that he can tell is missing, but he doesn't know exactly what it is. And he wonders what does a house where people usually live have. In the lab, they showed him what a typical home looked like before the gate opened. In the educational video he saw at the lab, they usually grow something in the yard. He says maybe he's missing a dog, but he can't raise one here. He wonders if he should make a vegetable garden, but doesn't even know what's growable in the demon realm. He realizes something, saying that there's a snowy mountain nearby, and he can probably plant some mandragoras. He heads to the mountains, and we learn that the mandragora's habitat is near the peak of the snowy mountain, where demonic energy is thickest. He says it sure is snowing a lot, fitting for a snowy mountain. It snowed a lot the day he was kidnapped by the lab too. Back then he was so cold, he thought being kidnapped was better, and that there are good things about him becoming a chimera, and he doesn't have to worry about dying from cold or hunger. Judging from the amount of demonic energy, he must be almost there. The snow is also starting to let up, and he says that he's glad he found the mandragoras, and the trip wasn't wasted. Mandragoras are extremely stress sensitive, like a sunfish type monster. They can die from even the slightest environmental changes. He says that if he's going to relocate one, a younger, more adaptable one would be better. He'll start by removing its roots. He says he probably should have covered his ears, as they're going to scream, but when he pulls it out, he instead gets a cute little potato-looking thing in his hands. He wonders why it's so docile. Seeing that it's cute, he decides to try another one. And again, it's the same thing. And then another one. As they start babbling, he says that these guys are talking in their sleep, and that the so-called mandragora scream happens when artificially grown by humans. In the human world with low demonic energy, they're under extreme stress. Then if you forcibly pull them out, they scream and die instantly. No scream is understandable since it's the demon realm, but why aren't they resisting at this point, and they should be trying to run. And maybe they recognize him as one of them, as he does have mandragora cells transplanted in his body after all. He says this is good, as less stress the better. And if they grow well, he'll ask for a few side roots and make tea later. And he says that he heard forcibly picking the fruit makes them extremely poisonous, so he'll have to ask them nicely. He hears some fighting, saying that there are some hunters nearby. He doesn't know why they'd come all the way to this dangerous snowy mountain, but he wants to go check out the gate and head over there. We see some hunters fighting, as they were used as bait and ditched by their comrades. As they're getting chased by some bunnies with some actual Resident Evil mouths. They leap at the hunters and put up a barrier, but while they manage to block the first few hits, the guy starts tearing up, saying it's over as they start swarming him, and his barrier starts to crack. He says that he should have kept doing odd jobs, wondering why he volunteered to find the chimera, and he screams, asking for help. We see a bright light in the sky. As on cue, Dowoon lands nearby, sending out a giant shockwave. The bunnies stop their hunt and wonder what that is, as the hunters spot a person. What they see is Dowoon. Dowoon sees the snow bunny and says that it's been a while, and he starts releasing some serious killing intent, making them all afraid. They start running away, even running over each other, and the hunters say there's no way, as B-rank monsters fled upon seeing him. He even melts some of the snow with his landing, as you see it dripping from a nearby plant, and they thank him for saving them. They introduce themselves as Oh Shonju and Kim Tae-hoon. They go to ask for his name, and Dowoon tells them. They've never heard of his name before, wondering what his outfit is, saying that he might be a reclusive hunter. Dowoon asks why they're here, saying that just looking at them, they seem like a D rank, and he should know how dangerous the mountain is. They say it's because of money. There was a request to capture a chimera alive, and the pay was very good. Dowoon asks about the chimera, saying there's no way it's him, and they say that a lab test subject escaped, and it was a mechanical creature that jumped into a gate while fleeing. Dowoon says if it were a mechanical creature, it's definitely not him, and that he'll just grab a gate crystal and head back. He asks where their gear is, saying surely they didn't come to the demon realm empty-handed, asking where the gate crystals are. Cheonju tells him that his teammates, rather, those assholes, took everything and ran, and that was their plan from the beginning. He should have realized when the B-rank hunter let them join. Dowoon says that those bastards must be the ones with the gate crystal then, and Taehoon asks if he has any plans to return, as they're reaching their limits soon. He surely knows what happens when you get contaminated by demonic energy. The amount of time a hunter can endure in the demon realm varies greatly by awakening rank. If they don't return to the human world in time to purify the energy, most die. Of course, Dowoon isn't affected. They start pleading with him to take them back to the human world, and one of them even mentioned their wife being pregnant. Dowoon uses his senses, finding it, and before they finish their sentence, he leaves by dashing through the air, even shattering the ground beneath him. They call out, asking where he's going, begging that he take them with, as we see the robot walk into the forest. It gets to a cliff, saying that this place seemed dangerous, and we see the B-rank hunters saying now is their time to capture it, and they should all rush it at once. The robot says that if it's dangerous, it needs to eliminate them. As the hunters all start leaping towards it, it starts to darken its color and prepare for combat. Dowoon arrives, but says that he's too late. As there's just backpacks and blood on the floor, he says the hunters must have all run away. They left behind their gear as well, and there's a child's footprints mixed with beast tracks. He wonders if it kept changing form while fighting. He recalls Taehoon saying that one of the test subjects escaped, and that it was a mechanical life form. If it's made of liquid metal, it can freely change shape, but the material was rare, so they made it small, about the size of a dog or a kid. Dowoon says for it to overwhelm 5 B-rank hunter alone, it's not bad. It then jumps to Taehoon, yelling, telling Cheonju to get it together. Cheonju says that he's done for, as his body has been fully corrupted by miasma. Taehoon says that he shouldn't say that, as his kids do next month. Cheonju starts spitting up blood, saying that Taehoon should tell his wife he's sorry if he doesn't make it back. Taehoon begins crying, telling him to hold in there, as there's still hope for a miracle. That miracle is none other than Dowoon, as he starts to arrive. Taehoon hears the footsteps and turns, surprised, and is super happy to see him, as he's even carrying their luggage too. He immediately runs over, getting on his knees, saying that he's begging him to save them. Dowoon says there's no gate stones left, and Taehoon tells him that he knows that in this lawless demon territory, once it's used it's gone for good. That's why he gives him these checks, as it's their only way to survive, and he just needs 1 gate stone. If they don't return now, they'll die for sure. It's 2,000,001, and while he doesn't need it right now, he might need it later in the human realm. He takes it and gives them both, each a stone. Taehoon thanks him, with a very deep bow, while opening up the portal. He tells Cheonju that if they hurry, they can make it. Dowoon says that, from what he can recall, gate stones cost 200,000 won. Taehoon says that was ages ago, bro, and this shit is worth 1,000,000 now. Wondering why he doesn't know this. Dowoon says that he feels like he just got too much money in return, and puts his hand on Cheonju's shoulder, saying that he'll give the change back like this. As he starts to infuse him with his aura, they're confused, but Taehoon can tell that he's infusing mana into him, telling him to wait. Infusing mana is something even A-rank hunters avoid. If the manas clash and tangle, their mana holes could rupture, and they both die. Taehoon thinks they're both doomed, but Cheonju's immediately cleansed and looks very healthy, saying that the miasma is purified. He starts getting excited, hugging him, saying they're actually going to live. Taehoon's freaking out, saying there's no way that he purified miasma by infusing mana. It's impossible unless your mana is overwhelmingly powerful, and he wonders who the hell he is. Dowoon heads back to his house, and says it looks like there are no intruders, and that was an unexpected profit, making the trip pretty satisfying. He then hears little grunts and looks down, seeing the mandragoras are awake now. He says maybe the long trip bored them out, as their leaves are drooping, and he wants to get them planted. He gets a nice little plot of land, and puts all 3 of the cuties in there, and they look very unhappy. He says that they must not like being relocated, or maybe they're hungry from traveling without soil, and then he starts to infuse them with some mana, saying that usually they love this. They get excited immediately. Damn, these things are adorable. He says they're looking better now, and says there's no way they're even monsters at this point. He can also feel the energy behind him, saying that it must be the one the hunters were tracking, and he wonders what a mechanical life form would want with him, but he says that if it wants something, it'll show up itself. He shoves the checks into the wall, and starts digging through their luggage, saying that he wants to sort through what they brought. We see a portable burner and cookware, 8 more gate stones, some spare clothes that need to be washed, and some sleeping bags. He says they came well prepared, which is good for him. He sees a packet of ramen, saying the last time he had this was back in the orphanage, and it's perfect, because he's hungry, and it's time to cook it up. As he goes to eyeball the amount of water he needs for the ramen, we see some bubbles in the pond as 2 fish jump out towards him. He says people usually add stuff to ramen, and that fish would be a pretty good add, as he literally flicks it to death. He also goes to grab some eggs, saying that this will be a good substitute as well, and he has no green onions, but some herbs from this tree might also be fine. He throws them all into the pot, saying that the ingredients are ready, and it's time to head back. As he does, the little robot steps out, and is obviously hungry, saying that man is cooking. How is he hungry though? Dowoon turns on the burner, saying that there's no note on the packet for when to add the fish, so he guesses he'll just boil it all together. This is definitely not going to mix well, and the smell starts spreading, and the mandragorists get a whiff of it before saying this smells like ass. The smell continues to travel throughout the forest until it reaches the robot. He says that he wants some, wondering what to do. He says that he saw this at the lab, as he transforms his body into a dog, saying that humans like dogs, and they help the pitiful. He starts walking over, whining, showing that his leg is all hurt, and Dowoon recognizes it instantly as the mechanical life form. He says it's been following him for a while, and it must be acting as a dog to lower his guard, and faking injury for sympathy. He looks like it's still learning, wondering how it escaped the lab and made it to the demon realm in the first place with it being so young. He says that it's done, asking the robot if it would like to try some, and it immediately gets excited. It walks over and starts drooling, looking at his delicious food. Gordon Ramsay would be super proud. The robot is already chowing down, and Dowoon starts as well. Robot looks a bit concerned, and Dowoon is eating it, saying that this is the taste. As he recalls how he used to eat it with the other kids in the orphanage when he was a child, and how good it was then, he says that he thinks it did taste something like this. In that moment, the memory of the 7-year-old him eating ramen returned, and he thought it was really good, but in fact it was hot ass, and nostalgia just won over his senses. Afterwards, he told the robot that if it's done, it's time to go, as he needs to clean. The robot starts limping with the other arm now, and Dowoon calls it out on it, and immediately tries to fix it. Kind of cute.